sign yet. Gotcha. Good evening. Welcome to the Thursday, March 21st, 2019 Board of Selectmen's meeting. Please stand while we salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Opening comments, Mr. Lombard.
I'm all set.
Enzo.
I think I'm going to save mine for later on. Okay, T.
Same here. Okay. Next, approve Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from February 28th, 2019.
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the meeting minutes of February 28th, 2019.
I'll second the motion.
Second. All right.
How come he always gets to go first? I don't understand that.
I'm special.
I'll take care of it. Next meeting, you're going to be Mr. Big. Discussion on that? On the minutes? Any discussion? Okay, seeing and hearing on those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Citizen Forum. And due to the last meeting, please make sure you come up to the mic, because we wound up in a discussion back and forth. People in town couldn't hear it, and they let me know. So, thank you. Bill?
Hi, Bill Mahoney, 179 Willow Road. I understand the WAF is on the agenda tonight. I'm not sure if it's executive session or whatever. Someone said it wasn't going to be public. And I want to make it clear that the WAF at low tide, sailors, lobstermen have a real trouble with it. I know we talked about it last year, and I'd like to know what's going on. Again, anybody uses the WAF now, the slip impeded at low tide. You can't get your pram in and out without difficulty, and oftentimes people damage their prams. And my understanding was those folks were supposed to clear that up, square away the low tide. Is there people want to comment on that now?
Billy, the town administrators got the contract coming back, and hopefully they get it done before the end of Memorial Day to fix the slope, point the rest of the wall going down to the slip, fixing the end of the slip, okay, and then the wall going under the WAF too. That's all going to be repointed, and they're going to fix the. Well, Tony will explain it to you. He's already signed a contract with them to bring that company back. He's re-signed the contract, the extra money to take care of all that. So the WAF should be in good shape come before Memorial Day.
Great, because that's real important to
yeah.
sailors, everybody who uses
They have to fix those plates at the end.
Yeah, otherwise low tide. At high tide, looks great, it's fine, but low
Tony can
tide.
explain this better than I. He's talking about the WAF repairs. Yeah, you get your shot, they got you in the deal here.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Well, the
We're
question
talking
was,
about the
what's
WAF,
status?
Tony, and the low tide issues that
Yeah.
everybody has
So
been hampered.
we're actually, you know, can't talk too much about it because we're currently in litigation with the contractor, but we're actually meeting tonight in executive session to hopefully come to a resolution on that. And the goal for the town is to have them come back, make the finishing repairs. Inclusive of that is the granite blocks at the bottom of the ramp, and have those be flush with the rest of the ramp so there is no lip. And the goal of the board and myself is to have that work be completed before Memorial Day. But again, we're actually talking about that tonight. Can't really get into more details of it, but that's what we're pushing for.
Okay, thank you.
And Bill,
I have one other issue.
before that, Bill, on this, what Mr. Lombard said is true, but all of that is in litigation. That's why we're having an executive session tonight.
Yeah, well, I
But
certainly
our
hope,
goal is to get to
certainly
Memorial.
hope we can get that squared away for everybody in town.
Sooner the better.
who uses it.
Understood.
Also, the work that's happening, the contract for the work at Tudor Beach includes the wall of the parking lot approaching, so to the left of the ramp, approaching the wharf.
Left of the ramp.
So that wall under the wharf and on the other side, repointing that. So that's a separate contract, and that project is underway. They had to stop because of the weather, but now that the weather's changed, we expect them to pick back up on that.
Right, I got you. The other issue I wanted to give my 2 cents on the wetlands bylaw. I really feel, I live in the area that has yellow, if you will, and actually the backside of my house is on the ocean. That has been in the Wetlands Protection Act since 1983. This new bylaw affects only the 100 feet bordering freshwater wetlands, if you will, the bird sanctuary that we hung out when we were kids, and also the golf course and also down the dump. So it has nothing to do with the people who live on the ocean. I wanted to point that out. It has a lot to do with the people who live near wetlands. And again, I'm concerned about my neighbors who live across the street. If I were going to build a garage, I would probably have to go to the Conservation Commission and talk about how my water would, where my water would run. And we've had people talking about wetland gardens recently, or dry, putting the water into what we call, my grandfather did it years ago, in a dry well, etc. So it is an advantage to people who live downstream. I know I have relatives who live downstream of some properties that have been built over the years, and their cellars are flooded due to construction above them in the uplands. So it's common sense that water's going to run downhill, and this new wetlands bylaw attends to that. So I want to put my 2 cents in that it is going to help people, and obviously as there's 70 people, not 200 and so odd people. Matter of fact, most of the people who are presently in the wetlands are going to be helped by that due to the fact that folks, if they're going to build a huge area that has impervious situations like tar, the water is going to run downhill. So the idea that they talk about, it makes sense to help our neighbors, not hurt them. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Judy Zahora, 17 Simmons Road. Whatever happened with the right-of-way? Whatever happened with that?
The right-of-ways?
Mm-hmm.
One minute.
Sure. She's looking at you.
Well, I'm looking at all of you.
Go.
Planning board? It's planning board. We should have come back, supposed to be working with the town to remedy that. There is a house up in Little Nahant. There's rights-of-ways everywhere that people just take. And
That we can't use anymore. Right.
right.
So, but you, I guess, it's-
All these people who've gotten letters, and my feeling is, open them up.
but you talked about it a couple months ago, and was there nothing, no outcome, no action taken?
Well, let me answer that. What happened was, we started after it, my first year here, and we found out that Big Nahant has as many where people have just taken over. And this then town administrator, we made a list, we sent it to the planning board, and it hasn't been enforced since. So we're looking to have it enforced, because I know of 3 or 4 people that just had right away, taken right away. In Big Nahant. In Little Nahant, Enzo's right,
Well, not all the right-of-ways are gone, just about.
Yeah. Well, again, that's something that, and I'm gonna, you know, I saved my opening comments for later on, and I'm gonna touch a little bit about, not so much on that, but other things, that we need to really, really crack down on in the town.
So as the board, is there some action, some action you can take to make certain that that actually happens?
As a board member, I can tell you right now, I want them opened up.
Well, I mean, I thank you for that, but
DPW up there with a backhoe.
that's the question, right? So what actions are going to be taken, because we've talked about it now for 6 months, 3 months, 4 months, a month?
Judy, maybe even 3 years. Yeah, I agree.
Well,
It's
let's
very-
take an action,
very
for gosh
frustrating.
sakes,
It's been a long time.
because it's not getting any better.
No. Thank you.
Well, we're gonna follow up with those letters we sent out to all the people that have taken over these right-of-ways. The letter's gone out. And we'll follow up with town council, okay? And they have the legal letter going out shortly. We're gonna make sure that, you know, they just can't take over the... Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Well, there's one particularly up in Little Nahant at the end there, that I know a couple of people that want to go fishing, and they've already been thrown off. And I told them, I said, don't ever back down. You can do it. And, you know, and again, this all stems from a long time of abuse, and it's got to stop. Again.
The right-of-ways have to be posted.
Letters.
All these, with the signs, and to let these people know, to follow up the letters that we sent already, and then the legal letters will be sent out shortly to make sure that we open those all up, and then have it posted as well.
Thank you, because I did notice that right away that we are limited to the signs now.
They're all gone. There's one up in Little Nahant in particular. Every time they put one up, someone takes it down. I mean, the cops can't always see who it is. Maybe we put cameras out there, I don't know, but I can tell you that.
What Judy just said for you out in TV land is that some of the signs have been taken down.
Perambulation signs. There used to be big red signs that were up, you know, all around town. And we actually had a committee that would go out every year and they'd walk all the rights of ways, keep them open. Sorry?
I would be happy to be on that committee.
No, that's,
Judy said she'd happy to be on that committee. Next.
So, Gerardo Raphael, 47 Seaview Ave, Nahant. And I was on the planning board when they developed a lot of these pathways and right-of-ways, and we did a study, and this was 5 years ago, that they hired Reed land surveyors, went out there and did a survey in each one of those right-of-ways and documented them all, and now the planning board's been sitting on it for 5 years. So it's either you hold them accountable for what they do and where they're going with this, or just sit on it for the next 10 years. Someone needs to be accountable. They need to do their job.
we have pressured them. We've talked to them about it. And again, I don't disagree with you. I've talked to Ed Goodrich, who is a big proponent of this. And, you know, letters, you can send 1 million letters out. It means nothing. Action does. So you got to take action, period. Right, Jerry?
Question. Panama Manatee, 122 Wilson Road. I know that the town has, you know, like a lack of revenue. Do we have any discourse if people do not actually put the signs back up, or they keep on taking them down, to find the landowners? You know, that could be a revenue stream, actually. And that would actually give them incentive to keep the signs up. I don't know if that's legal, if we can legally do that.
Well, the first
Like a ticket.
the first hurdle there is catching the person that's removing the sign, and that's what we haven't, I mean, you can assume, but we don't have evidence of who's taking the signs down. So it's, you know, to issue a fine on a guess isn't legal.
You should ask Timmy how many times it's been taken down. He would know.
Okay, just curious.
Thank you. Okay, new business. Declare the dump truck as surplus, 3A. Richie, that's you.
Okay,
I'm actually first. I know.
let me get to the page. What is this, is this the one I'm on?
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Board of Selectmen vote to declare the following as surplus material and equipment to be disposed of in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 30B, Section 16. It's a 2006 Ford F-450 dump truck. I'm not going to read the VIN number.
No.
I so move that, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second it for discussion.
Discussion. Richie?
I have,
None? You have discussion? No. All those in favor?
aye.
Unanimous vote. Approve Easter egg hunt for Friday, April 19th, between the Flash Road Playground and the fire station, starting at 10 a.m. 3B.
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Johnson Elementary School Easter egg hunt for Friday, April 19th at 10 a.m.
I will second the motion.
Discussion. Seeing and hearing on all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Town Administrator report.
Okay, so the first part, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first part of this is to open and close the warrant and send it to the FinCom. We've made a number of additions and edits to the previous version of this. The first thing I want to announce is after hearing that, so we were planning on having the town meeting at the country club on that Saturday. The country club has scheduled events for Friday and Sunday morning, and actually has had a lot of requests for that day of Saturday. Plus, the warrant now has expanded significantly, and so we assume that we're going to be there. You know, it may take quite some time to get through the warrant. It might even overlap, you know, into Monday or Tuesday. So for that reason, I've spoken with the country club. We are going to have the town meeting here, like usual, at the town hall. And I know we previously announced that it was going to be different, and I apologize for any confusion. I will do a code red robocall to make sure we get the information out. We'll do a message board at the beginning of the, at the end of the causeway, so folks are fully aware that we are going to be having the meeting here in the town hall, and we're going to rearrange and try to get as many seats in here as possible so that we can be able to host the amount, hopefully the amount of people that attend the meeting. The other thing in here is that we will be having the override vote will be added to the ballot for that same day. So you guys have a motion in the book to ask the clerk to add that to the ballot. And that override is for $600,000. It's a general override, and I can get into that more as we get into the next topic of the budget. But sticking to the warrant, the Articles 2 through 13 are standard articles that are in every year's warrant. Article 14, the Council on Aging revolving fund and the cemetery revolving fund. Typically, we vote on those every year, The Municipal Modernization Act allows us to put those into our bylaws, so we don't have to authorize them each and every year. So we're going to be doing that. Those revolving funds are fee-based. They don't come out of the general fund, and they have a spending cap, an annual spending cap. So the fund for Council on Aging is at $15,000, and the cemetery revolving fund is at $20,000. And the only difference there is Council on Aging was $10,000 in the past. We actually upped it to 15 because they're actually seeing a lot of, they're doing a great job. They're getting a lot more activity, a lot more membership, and so they have that ability to raise more user fees and spend more money on the folks taking part in that program. Article 15 is the Recreation Revolving Fund. That's the same as previous years. Article 16 is Community Preservation. Their recommended articles. Lynn, do you want to speak on that, or? Okay, so I'll pass it to Lynn Spencer, Chair of the Community Preservation Committee, to talk about the articles that are being recommended by the committee for Article 16.
Lynn, you want to come up and sit there?
Sure.
Hope it works.
Hello? Everybody hear me?
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Board of Selectmen. Ours has been a hard-working committee this year. I think at my last presentation to you, I said that we had received 14 applications. Our committee consists of myself as chairman, Paul Spurn, who is appointed by the Board of Selectmen, Mirjana Maksimovic for the Planning Board, Mickey Long for the Housing Authority, Ellen Goldberg, also at large, and Ellen Steves, Conservation Commission representative. We have pondered the resources that we have at hand and the applications. We worked closely with the applicants, which included a number of applications from the town of Nahant, one from the Council on Aging, the Public Library, etc. These recommendations to our town warrant represent approximately $260,000 worth of grants. We have approximately $240,000 in an annual appropriation. So to fund the net, we are drawing $20,000 from our $200,000 reserve. So in short, the applications include a set-aside for housing, because we didn't have any applications this year, and 10% of our money needs to go to housing or community housing, open space, as well as historic preservation. So we've got a set aside for housing. We have an operating or an administrative fund of $10,000, and that funds our community preservation dues, the coalition dues, some amount of printing of the town warrant, and offers consulting services assistance to those who are preparing grant applications. Next, we have a recommendation for a 10-year bond for the public library in the amount of $400,000, and that will address the structural issues on the terrace, as well as a number of exterior envelope issues. The overall cost for that project is $519,000. The net, the balance, is funded by a $70,000 emergency fund grant, which Tony, with Sharon Hawks, was able to secure from the Mass Historical Commission, as well as some previous community preservation grants that had been not fully spent, so there was money available towards that project. We anticipate that the library will be returning to the Community Preservation Committee for assistance next year for interior work, but this is the first part of a major effort on their part. The next application is for the next article is for the Flash Road Recreation Area, where we are looking at a budget estimate of $160,000 to replace the tennis court, 2 tennis courts, and the basketball court. We are recommending a 5-year bond, with the first year of that bond being just over $40,000. And this is a long-standing request. This has been something that the Recreation Committee has looked at in the past. There was a study at Flash Road looking at the overall recreational activities over there, and with respect to that study and to the efforts that were placed in it, we now are looking at the prospect of replacing these courts either in their current location, or alternatively, if there is a location that can be found that is not in conflict with existing recreational activities or municipal requirements, this article could possibly fund that partial relocation. It's not saying that it has to happen, but it says that it is encouraged because these courts are in close proximity, and in immediate proximity to the wetland. We did consult with the Conservation Commission. It is possible to replace them in this current location, but it may not be necessarily desirable. Another Flash Road recreational activity area in this warrant is $5,000 to resurface the Johnson School basketball court. That's a single basketball court near the school. There's a lot of erosion associated with it, and the court surface itself is in poor condition. Continuing on the theme of recreational activities, we have an article for $15,000 for the softball fields on Nahant Road, and that would replace the backstop and scoreboard as well as the clay running paths between the bases. On a different theme, back to Town Hall, we had an application from the Council on Aging for a significant renovation of their kitchen, which historically had been the kitchen associated with the fire station. Residents of the town may not remember or understand that, in fact, what is now the Tiffany Room housed fire trucks when this building was originally constructed, and there was a kitchen that serviced, the volunteer provided place for recreation or refreshment for the volunteer firemen. So we consider this a historic resource, and the Council on Aging has had a beautiful application. They are investing, this is a matching grant, and they are investing $50,000, which is being matched by community preservation for $50,000. The community preservation funding will be focused on building code, electrical, and health upgrades, while the Council on Aging will be supplying the appliances and the cabinets and so on from their money. Bear with me, I'm almost done. Another recreational related activity is Tudor Beach. We've all seen the work that has been done to rebuild the seawall that was significantly damaged in the winter storms. There's an article that is being proposed for $20,000 to fund the replacement of the stairs that were damaged in the storm. And those are removable stairs, so they can be taken away during the winter and stored and then replaced. A previous civic-minded donor had actually provided the town with the stairs in the first place, but now it's the town's responsibility. And the last article is it would appropriate $30,000 from community preservation to fund a consultant to assist in preparing the open space master plan for the town of Nahant. And this was an application from the town. The open space master plan was last updated, to my knowledge, formally, and Enzo, you may know more about this, but I believe it was 2008 is my recollection. It was in the process of being updated again, and they were aiming to finish it in 2014 when the committee was effectively disbanded. So this article would provide the resources for a newly constituted open space committee to function in the way that would be most effective for the town of Nahant.
Did we apply for this?
Originally no, but we've taken it on since then. An open space master plan could help. There's a ton of grant opportunities that the town hasn't been able to apply for because we don't have an active open space plan. However, the idea here would be to recreate the committee, which has been disbanded in some sense. It just hasn't been active. So reactivate the committee first, and then this funding would help bring in an outside consultant to help with, similar to the MVP program, to help with the planning, the public hearings, and the actual writing of the open space master plan.
So, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but, so the 3 people that I have found, have they been appointed yet?
No, actually the town moderator appoints.
Okay, so he needs to get letters out to them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they want to get rolling on that. I mean, there's 3 people that have offered their, help.
Mm-hmm.
So it was Diana Brandy, there's a couple other people I gave you.
The moderator is aware of it and intends to appoint them. I just don't think it's actually been done yet.
Right. Because the sooner the better, and I told them I would actually go to a meeting, tell them what their charge is. And then once 3 people get it going, then we can keep rolling with that and get more people on it. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I think that's good news. There are other matching funds that could be applied for to assist with the preparation of this open space plan, and we're aware that the open space plan is essential for opening the door to other grant applications, which the town could really benefit from. Right. So that is the sum and summing up of the text that is before you in terms of these articles. There are supporting statements for each of these articles that would go into the town meeting. I'd appreciate any editing that you'd like to suggest, but I've combed it pretty carefully, but one always misses a few things. And I just want to say that the committee appreciates the efforts of Tony and Bobby Joe, which has been very helpful to us, and Debbie Waters, who is essential to all of this. We still will be maintaining about just around $200,000 of general reserves and about $175,000 of community housing reserves. So, and our assumptions on the amount of money that would be receiving from the 3% surcharge is using a state match of only 30%, which has historically been lower than we've been receiving. So when the state monies get allocated, there's perhaps the chance, we hope the likelihood, that it'll be higher than 30%, and that money then goes into the general reserves.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks
this
for
is well
the
done.
opportunity to speak.
Hold on, Lynn. I have a couple
Oh,
questions
sure.
for you.
Okay.
Usually when the matching funds from the state, it started out at 100%,
Right.
and that's down to 30%.
No, it's not down to 30%. We're budgeting 30%.
Yeah, and it might go lower from the news I've heard from the various senators, our senator, that might be cut down to 20. And so, question, and I looked at this thing, you've got $160,000 for the recreational thing, but you're carrying a $200,000 reserve fund. Why wouldn't that reserve fund be utilized to pay for this $160,000 instead of us going out to borrow it? I mean, it's costing us money to borrow that $160,000 for the recreation, especially with the large reserve fund that you're carrying. I mean, I don't understand that. To me, it's, why, number one, the question is, why are you carrying such a large $200,000 reserve fund, number one? Number two, why wouldn't we apply your reserve fund to this $160,000?
Well, I think that's a good question. We felt that there was prudence in maintaining a reserve fund to have available for, major projects. The borrowing right now is quite low, so the amount of interest, because we can borrow at a relatively low rate, and it just seemed to us that it was a prudent thing to maintain a general reserve and take advantage of low interest rates at the same time.
Well, the point being, I saw that $200,000, and I'm concerned that money being so tight in the budget, plus we've got an override. And then the override coming, and your 3% coming off the tax rate, if the board voted to discontinue that 3% and take your reserve fund and put it to the 160,000, it would help us tremendously. And these articles here that you've submitted and the articles that have been submitted could stand alone in the warrant. So people vote, they're going to vote on it individually.
That's right.
They have to vote anyways. So that's my question.
Well, I understand your question. First of all, historically, we've been receiving, in the first years we received 100% match. As you're aware, historically it's been dropping. Our average has been 60%. We took a conservative posture this year in view of the fact that many other towns and cities have joined it. In the past, we've received more than that. In addition, that $200,000 can't be used for anything other than community preservation funded projects. And a number of these projects relate to town recreational resources, town community on aging activities, things that in fact would otherwise have to be supported by the town or not. And they're not necessarily, the Council on Aging, for instance, is not a luxury. It's an essential program.
But the Council of Aging, Linda's here, and of course I got to commend Linda for doing an outstanding job down at the Council of Aging.
That's right.
The food that she's been serving and the guest cooks have been outstanding, and nothing but a praise to you, Linda, and your team for doing it. But I'm concerned this 3%, especially this year, where we're asking the voters for an override, that 3%, if we backed off of that, would save us some funds. These individual articles in the old days, in the old past, they would stand alone on the warrant. We would vote them in and up or down. Mm-hmm. The recreation facilities are a disgrace, and they let it go. And the kids of today, they're using their basketball court at night because of the lights. The tennis courts has been very seldom used because it's just in repair, and we have to fix that. But I mean, these articles could stand alone in the warrant, which they are now. They're going to have to be voted up and down under your preservation. But I'm concerned with your $200,000 reserve fund. Number one, why is it so large, and do you really need it? And can we use that $200,000 to pay for the $160,000, where we're going out to authorizing the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen to go out and borrow this money? And I'm concerned. Is an actual need for you to carry that reserve fund for $200,000? I mean, just because,
it's not a need. It's been a practice to try to maintain a general reserve.
But anything that you have an emergency for, if something happens during the year, it'd have to be voted in a town meeting.
Absolutely.
Either an annual town meeting or a special if something dramatic happened.
Absolutely.
If the library roof fell down, something like that. I mean, it would all have to be voted in.
correct?
but have you carry $200,000 is kind of huge to me. Is there some way you could move and have the board or have the town administrator sit with him and use that $200,000 to pay for this $160,000?
Conceivably, yes. Yes, of course. Conceivably.
I mean, I just don't understand Preservation Trust using $200,000 for reserve fund. I just think it's,
So I've just got,
You
just to be
haven't-
clarified, it's not the Preservation Trust, it's the Town of Nahant Community Preservation Fund.
I understand, but it's $200,000 that's tying us up. It's being used, and I just think you really don't need a reserve fund, because if you needed money, you would have to come back for a town meeting to vote that money in. Either have a special town meeting or something dramatic. And I don't believe in the last years, have you ever used that reserve fund for an emergency?
No, we're not keeping it for emergency, we're keeping it for, a potentially large project. It's been a practice to try to maintain a reserve fund. So we could draw on it as we needed to.
But
I mean, if we were to, sorry to interrupt.
No, but not to interrupt you, but that would have to come in front of town meeting.
Absolutely.
And I just don't think we should be using that $200,000 reserve fund to pay for this project, $160,000. Instead of us going out and borrow, we just keep borrowing and we're kicking the can down the road here. And I just think it's time that we got to tighten the ship in all areas of the finance, just not to carry that kind of reserve. I mean, we carry a reserve, and because you get department heads that come up with emergency during the year, and it's sometimes needed. But your articles, all your articles in here, they're going to have to be voted individually anyways. So it's not something that, it's like an extra layer, and that 3% that we're charging the taxpayer, I'd like to do away with that 3% surcharge, and give it back to the taxpayer, because we're going to ask them for an override, and that would help the override. That's extra 3% that we give you people until we get our financial whereabouts, because things are very tight. If you look at these budgets and everything else, we're giving very little raises for the troops, fire, police, public works, town hall staff. I mean, they've been given 1% raise. The medical increase was about 6 or 7%, and they're actually coming up, they're coming up zero and the minus factor when they go forward. And so that's what I'm looking at, is we just can't give 1% raises to the departments. We just can't do it. We're going to be losing people, and we're down to the minimum staffing at all 3 departments. I mean, we just can't get any lower. So I'd like to have you, Tony, if you could meet with them, meet with the president, and see if we could change that.
Well, we have a meeting next Tuesday, so that's been posted, and we certainly would invite Tony and members of FinCom or the public to come and talk to us, and we can look at this. This is what we're proposing for our warrant articles. I would like to say one thing about your comment about taking away the surcharge. To me, and if you look at the history of spending of community preservation since it was instituted in 2005, with 2004, with 2005 being the first year, $5 million has been spent primarily on town-related activities.
Absolutely.
Very little has been spent on the nonprofits in town. So to me, and I think the voters, as they look at the history of our spending, which is published every year in the town warrant, they will see that this has helped the town maintain its buildings, offer recreational resources, offer, quite honestly, indirectly, by the work, for instance, with the Council on Aging, social services, all things that benefit the community at large. At the same time, Richie, I completely understand the crunch that we are all as voters facing when it comes to an override, when it comes to actually recognizing and rewarding the people who work as municipal employees.
Well,
I certainly understand that. But taking away community preservation will not necessarily benefit people's salaries. And we have the ability to sort of pull in money from the state, both from their percentage match, as well as the ability to match matching grants, which Tony, for instance, this year pulled in $70,000 for the public library. Last year, we got $50,000 for the Ellingwood Chapel. So,
I'm not disagreeing on those projects.
yeah.
Well, my problem is, we started in 2005 with 100% matching funds from the state. And now it's going to probably, in fiscal year 2020 and 2021, 23, this is going to be cut down to 20%. And it's at 30% now, so we're going the other way. And for us to borrow money to do some of these projects is just, we need to stop borrowing. And I just like to see if you can meet with the town administrator on that reserve fund and see if we can transfer it over and cover this, this thing.
Well, certainly we'll consider that. Yeah, sure.
Question, Lynn.
Sure.
In order to change the surcharge, would take a town vote? Mm-hmm. Okay,
Yeah, it certainly would take a town vote, yeah.
a town vote. Yeah, I know that. I'm just making
Is
so
it on the
everyone
warrant?
knows. Okay. So you'll meet with Lynn?
Yeah, and I just want to thank the chairwoman and the members of the board.
I do want to thank you too.
For the work that they did. There was I think, historical amount of applications that came in front of them this year. There were tremendous projects that applied for funding that didn't find their way onto this list, but were certainly admirable, and I think they'll be applying again next year. So thank you for the work that you and the committee has done so far.
And Lynn, I did want to say thank you to you and your committee. You've done a fantastic job. It's just this fiscal year and the next 3 fiscal years, as you look at the advanced financials, it's in very, very poor shape. And we need to look at everything, and that's why.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, your committee too.
So continuing on with the rest of the warrant, Article 17 is an option for the town to adopt a local meals tax. So in 2009, the state allowed municipalities to adopt a local meals tax option. It's 0.75%. Right now, sales tax is 6.25%. If this were to pass, the tax would go up to 7%. 75% of the communities in Essex County have adopted this tax. All of our surrounding communities have adopted it, aside from Marblehead. If we had, just to put some information out there, if we had adopted this tax back in 2009, we estimate we would have received about $500,000 in revenue to the town, and it's about averaging somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000 a year is what we would estimate. The other benefits of this local meals tax option are it adds no administrative burden to the town. It's passed through to the consumer, so it shouldn't have a negative impact on the businesses here in town. And probably most importantly, it's one of the only revenue options that we could propose that isn't completely funded by residents of the community. So it's certainly something that we've talked about and something that the town should consider, so it's on the article. I'd like to invite our business owners in town to maybe the next Board of Selectmen meeting to have more of a discussion about this potential option and how it could be implemented so to lessen the burden. You know, some, like for instance, some of our function halls have already committed to events in the future at a designated price. So we want to make sure that we don't interfere with that. You would, if it were to pass, you would want to sunset the implementation of it, so not to affect existing contracts. But there's a ton of information on this from the Department of Revenue, and we can talk more about it at the next Board of Selectmen meeting.
If I may?
Yes.
The board, I would like to congratulate the town administrator that the board has basically told him to look at everything in the town, more or less as an auditor, but only because I'm a former auditor too. But this meals tax, for us to have this pass is a no-brainer. We would have received $49,000 last year if we had done this. And as the town administrator said, we don't have to do anything except adopt it. So this will really help us. Thank you for that.
Article 18 and Article 19 are new. They would be, if the override passes, we'll be putting $25,000 into OPEB, an account of other post-employment benefits, an account that we currently only have $1 in, and stabilization. We'd be putting $100,000 into the stabilization fund. These are initiatives to help the core finances of the town and protect our bond rating going forward. Article 20 is storm damage.
Excuse me, before you get
Yes,
to
sir.
that, you're saying OPEB has $1 in it?
Yes, sir.
You're saying stabilization fund has how much in it?
I actually have to
Roughly?
double check that. There might be $80,000 in there. You know, financial principles, you should have about 30% of your total budget in there. Our total, so we really should be in the, you know, $4 million range
Okay.
of stabilization.
Thank you.
It'll take quite some time to get there, but, you know, as long as we're putting money in there, we're stabilizing the town, we're protecting our bond rating.
Bond rating, yep.
Which is going to be extremely important, given that we have a ton of additional capital projects down the road.
Thank you.
Article 20 is storm damage. This is the storm damage from last March. We estimate from $1.2 to $1.4 million. FEMA will reimburse us 75% of that cost. So the 25% portion of that, we estimate anywhere from $400,000 to $600,000. The other, we currently have $11 million in outstanding debt. So the idea with this override is to pay the bulk of that FEMA, that 25% that we owe on storm damage last year, instead of borrowing to pay it off. So the bulk of this override would go towards paying down that debt, and plus the other things that I've talked about and I can get into in the next portion, but that's what that article is for. Article 21 is paving. Article 22 is an MWRA borrowing. This is a $50,000 low-interest loan for water repairs, which we were on the capital plan from last year. 23 is fire capital, which is has to do with dispatch, and it's in a contractual obligation with the City of Lynn. Article 24 is a borrowing for a new mini backhoe for the cemetery. Our current piece of equipment there, we bought in the early 90s, has gotten a ton of use out of it. It's actually, you know, a success story for the town of how much use we've gotten out of that piece of equipment, but it's time to be replaced. Article 25 is Green Communities LED conversion. This year, the town was designated a green community and received $130,000 grant towards energy efficiency measures. Our utilities are our second biggest expense. So using the state funding to lower those expenses is only going to help our expenditure side of our financial issues. And we can use this designation grant to purchase and convert our streetlights to LED. The total project cost is estimated from $185,000 to $200,000. So with the $130,000 grant, plus rebates from the utilities, plus an additional MAPC grant, plus savings on maintenance contract, the payback of this project could be less than a year, and to the tune of about $30,000 to $37,000 a year annually savings.
Great.
So it's a great opportunity for us to take advantage of. Article 26 is amending the general bylaws to move the annual town meeting to the third Saturday in May. That wouldn't happen this year. It would take, if it passes, it would take place for the following year going forward. This is in line with the Department of Local Services recommendation from 2015 that we move our annual town meeting to late May or early June because of the additional information about revenues that we get from the state. Right now, as we budget, we have to estimate those revenues. And so this is going to help us, again, bring our financial structure and policies and planning more in line with what we actually have coming in and in line with the recommendations of the state, the Department of Revenue's recommendations. Article 27 is the repeal of the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Article 28 is a citizen's petition regarding allowing dogs from October 1st to April 30th using any town beach. They can go on any town beach with, let's just read this. Any town beach from October 1st through April 30th each year may be used for the exercise of dogs not on a leash. Article 29 is another citizen's petition, which would require the town to have a town meeting before entering into any contract with a utility that would be installing infrastructure for 5G network. And the last two articles are annual articles of continuing committees and acceptance of gifts. So that is that's the warrant right now.
Good, thank you. Two of my sons were talking about 5G, and they didn't like the fact about 5G. I was like, what's that? And they're like wizards. I said, okay, turn the TV on for me. They were big into 4G last year. All right, so we should open?
Yeah, Richie, you have a motion at the...
Yeah, I will. I just want to make sure you want to bring up the potholes are going to be covered, start at Monday around the town, all the various potholes. And we should notify everyone if there's a pothole that we missed or gonna miss. The paving company's coming in, and usually what they do is they cut a square around the whole pothole and the sewer covers, and if there's something in front of your house or someone else's house, you can report it to 581-0088, the town hall staff will note it and give it to Tony in the Public Works. Okay, ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I move the Board of Selectmen vote to open the April 27th, 2019 annual town meeting warrant for submittal for articles by all town boards, committees, personnel, and the public for consideration of placement onto the annual town meeting. I so move that, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Seeing and hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Vote.
Okay, so
And this is the
open the warrant, now we put the warrant on the... Okay, so I'm gonna move the Board of Selectmen vote to accept the close of the annual town meeting warrant as presented and to send it to the Advisory and Finance Committee, begin taking positions with the understanding that ongoing review will occur by the Board of Selectmen and that modifications may occur at a later time.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing and hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous vote. Okay, budget review continued.
So we have made changes to the previous budget that we sent to the FinCom, the Board of Selectmen budget. We've made those changes after speaking with the Finance Committee about reviewing the different line items. These changes are in line with the things that I've been talking about, where we are proposing a two-column budget, one no override balanced budget and one with contingent upon an override. Again, this override is about stabilizing the town finances. We intend to use this override money to put $475,000 and a little bit over $475,000 towards that FEMA debt, $12,000 towards financial policies, additional funds into the reserve fund, $100,000 into the stabilization, $25,000 into OPEB, $50,000 into the schools, $29,000 into salaries, $1,300 into Social Security. I will be hosting a community meeting or two here in April. I'll do one during the week, one on the weekend, to try and get folks to come in to help in advance of April town meeting, educate them on the budgets that we are proposing. I think I've explained, I've been going around town and trying to explain to folks to the best as my ability as to why it's necessary for us to get this override, and and get them to understand that right now we have a $13 million budget. We have $11 million in outstanding debt. We have no money in stabilization. We have no money in OPEB. And the idea of this override is to allow us to slowly turn that ship around so that we can start protecting our bond rating, putting money aside for emergency situations, start actually funding our capital plan in a fiscally responsible way. And last year we had to borrow $4 million because of a sewer break that we had, so that was the catalyst for the borrowing of $4 million to put towards our force main and doing an assessment. That was the result of not having stabilization. Those are the things that we're trying to avoid in the future. So I know it's a hard sell to explain to folks that last year seeing taxes go up and seeing them again this year, but what we're trying to do here is prevent those things from happening in the future by properly budgeting, getting less reliant on free cash, and setting the town up to attack a number of capital needs without having to borrow more and more. The way I like to put it when I talk to folks about our budget situation is, we live in a house that we can't really afford right now, and the roof needs to be repaired, we need a new car, the HVAC system needs to be replaced, and we have no savings. So we have to borrow again and again to replace those things. And it's ultimately, we just continue to kick this can down the road, and it's jeopardizing our bond rating, and it's just gonna, we need to stop that activity and change how we finance the town. I don't think this is a new message. I think this is something that folks have been hearing for quite some time now. And like I said, I will continue to educate folks around town to the best of my ability to the importance of this override, and hopefully what comes of it is sound financial policies and planning so that we can head Nahant in the right direction financially. So I ask that you vote to adopt the changes in this budget, and so that we can send it to the Finance Committee.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Board of Selectmen vote to endorse the revised town administrator and the selectmen budget for fiscal year 2020, and to forward it to the Finance Advisory Committee for their ongoing review in the fiscal year 2020 budget. I so move that.
I'll second for discussion.
Discussion?
Sure. Tony, I want to just thank you for doing this. I think people need to realize how much work that you have put into this, and you're absolutely right. We just can't keep kicking the can down the road. We can't keep borrowing. The town has always borrowed. I don't know why, but we do, and it's not always the right answer. Stabilization fund, I don't think people realize that. Take a ride down Lowlands and take a look inside that building down there. That's absolutely falling apart. That is the main sewer station that pumps everything out of Nahant. You get a failure there, complete failure, a building failure, we're in trouble. And this is what happened. I mean, we had a hole the size of my fist in a pipe on the Limway that cost us $1.5 million, and then of course that led to borrowing the $4 million for the other stuff, and then we had to borrow more money to replace the money in the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, and that's why taxes went up last year. I don't think people realize that that was the reason why that there was such a big increase. But someone has to pay for it. I mean, these are things that we have to pay for, and just overlooking our infrastructure, and I'm a big infrastructure person, I can tell you that, stuff that you don't see is a big mistake. It's a huge mistake because it ends up biting you later on. And that's why I think Tony's on the right track. I don't want an override, I can tell you that. I don't think anybody here really does, but do we need it? I think we do. So my vote is yes. I'll pass it.
I haven't called it yet.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Lombard, anything to say?
I just want to commend you, Tony. You've been going around to the various organizations and presenting the budget and the override, and it's been warmly received. I think you've made 4 already, maybe 5 coming up, and I got to commend you because the response from the participants listening to your presentation has been warmly received and greatly appreciated. I mean, the one at the Coast Guard Station, you know, the Hart Village Church, and you really, for the first year as town administrator, you've come in at a very difficult time, and you're doing an excellent job. I just greatly appreciate your enthusiasm and your diligence in getting everyone prepared and knowledgeable about this override. And it's very, very important that we get it passed. So we got to help you all the way and make sure that we push for it, because it's just a matter of these structural things. And a good example is the sewer main. Those 2 sewer breaks down there, they cost us, what, $1.2 million and $1.4 million? It was just huge, back to back. I know the governor was when we shut down the Linway, he was sitting in Bell Circle for about 4 hours. He was very, 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 very upset. So I know he's appreciated what you're doing.
I appreciate your comments. You know,
I'm not yet.
I'm sorry.
As chairman of the Board of Selectmen, this has been an unbelievably difficult year for me. But what gives me solace and kind of makes me smile is it's been worse for you. It's been awful, and we've met 100 million times to try to figure things out. So I just want to thank you for what you've done. And I really mean that the fact that the town should know that you're looking at everything that goes on in this town, and it's about time, and it'll be good for the town. So thank you.
I appreciate your comments. You know, I'm from this town. My family lives in this town. My friends live in this town. I care about this town greatly. You look at what's happened in surrounding towns like Swampscott, Topsfield, Wenham. You know, they continued to kick the can down the road, and their tax rates are through the roof because of emergency borrowing like we experienced last year. And the writing's on the wall. I mean, last year's $4 million borrowing was the first sign of, you know, of the negative things to come when you continue to kick the can down the road and borrow and to solve your problem. So, you know, it's a difficult thing to ask in my first year as town administrator here, but it's I truly feel it's what's best for the town. And following up with that is, again, sound financial policies and planning that we stick to turn things around here in the town. So appreciate your comments. You know, it's doing what I think is best for the town.
I know the town's gonna support you on this. Believe me, all right?
Appreciate it.
They're gonna support you. Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
I'll
ready?
call the vote.
What, on this side,
We've already read it.
Aye.
oh, aye, yeah.
Aye, unanimous vote. Okay,
So
ongoing,
before you move on,
gotta-
Mr. Chairman, the next motion there for
Richie, I gotta move it.
the next one, next page. So this next motion actually will direct,
Oh, this one here, yeah.
this next motion will actually authorize myself to ask the town clerk to include the $600,000 override on the ballot on Election Day, April 27th.
Mr. Chairman, I move the following question appear on the ballot at the annual town election and authorize the town administrator in at least 35 days prior to the annual town election to provide the town clerk with written notice of this vote, including the form of the question. So the town of Nahant be allowed to access an additional $600,000 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of a general operation of the town, including stabilization, other posted employment benefits, storm damage repairs, and public schools for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019. I so move that, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second it.
discussion. Seeing and hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Okay, Coast Guard housing presentation, please.
You can actually back it up a little.
Oh, good.
Oh, that's much better.
There you go.
So thanks for having us. So the purpose of this meeting is,
Excuse me. This is, for you out in TV land, this is Peter Barber, Chairman of the Coast Guard Housing Committee. Thank you, Peter.
sorry, yeah, so the purpose of this meeting is to give you guys an update, and hopefully there's a whole bunch of people watching at home. Some of the information may be repetitive to you guys because I've been here before, but we wanted to make sure that everybody was, had a good understanding of where we are and what we're doing. As our committee understands our objective, based on how we were formed at town meeting and the letters that we received for our appointment, it's essentially to maximize the long-term benefits of the town. We did some research and found out that in municipal planning, generally long-term translates to 50 to 100 years. Our committee members, we have abutters Tom Hamilton and Anne Marie Passanisi. We have from FinCom, Judy Zahora. Judy took over for Kathy Martin when Kathy Martin stepped down from FinCom. We have members at large, Pan Manady, Wayne Wilson. Wayne replaced Mark Cullinan, who stepped down last year, and Bob Caggiano. Bob stepped down from our committee in January due to work conflicts. And I represent the Zoning Board of Appeals. So the data that we've been collecting comes from the Hall Company. The Hall Company is our property managers. They maintain and run the real estate right now. We tapped real estate experts in town, 3 professional real estate experts and a developer. We've gotten tax information from the assessor's office. Carl Easton, who sat on this committee prior to the prior committee with these houses, did an extensive report on 40B and public input. Unfortunately, we've had less public input than we've expected to date, we've had probably 12 people show up at our open meetings, and most of those came to a meeting 2 weeks ago. So, existing site conditions. In case people don't know, this is one parcel of land, 3.355 acres. The 12 houses that sit on it were built in the 1950s as temporary military housing. The construction is 2x3 slab on grade, which probably wouldn't meet code today or doesn't meet code today. There are currently 10 underground storage oil tanks, 9 of which are in use for heating and 1 is abandoned. There is suspected asbestos and lead paint due to the age of the buildings and when they were built. The roofs and heating systems are from the 1970s. And of course the houses sit up on mounds. There's also some issues with the land extending into Castle Road by about 10 feet. There's a piece of property that's part of the first tee, and a portion of the property blocks access to the storage bunker that the sailing program uses. So the existing financials, we purchased it for $2.2 million. We're in the second of 10-year loans. This one is 0.5% interest. We currently owe $1.8 million. There are 5 years left on the current loan, and since 2009, we've only been paying yearly interest, so none of the main loan has been paid down. The current rentals range from $1,350 to $1,650, which is below market value by probably $300 or $400 a month. We pay the hall management company $51,500 a year to do, that's their base contract. When a new tenant moves in, we tend to spend money up to $6,000 with new carpet, paint, and appliances. There's other operating costs for maintenance and repairs. And I was just informed a few weeks ago that we've already replaced 2 of those 1970 heating systems. So the profit from rentals annually is $125,000, and to date, since we've bought the property, the town has netted over $1 million. So this is our work plan. I'm not going to go too much into detail, just because it's kind of extensive. We are currently sitting in roughly the 3 to 5, the columns 3 to 5. We're completing different items in those columns. This is our criteria. When we got together, we developed a criteria. You'll notice that addressing 40B has been kind of dropped. The town does not have a comprehensive 40B plan, and anything that we do that would address 40B would not be considered because we don't have that plan. These are our short list of options as they exist right now. Sell as is, rent the houses and then convert to open space. Sell houses or land and the rest becomes open space. Tear down and sell 12 lots, and tear down and sell 10 lots. I will tell you that we started out with 16 different options, and they, again, ranged from open space all the way up to the plan that was presented to the town that was rejected a few years ago at town hall meeting. So the next couple of slides, we're going to go into kind of these last 5 options. So sell as is with restrictions. This is the easiest option, least amount of work for the town, the greatest immediate financial gain. There are several issues with this option which would have a detriment to the town, the neighborhood, and diminishes the long-term financial and aesthetic value. So the next slide is talking about the financials. So up front, total sales potential is 3.6 to 4.8 million. Again, we met with local real estate agents who gave us, the financials, gave us comps on what we could sell the houses for as they exist. The taxes, roughly $4,800 per house, would net us $57,600 a year. We do anticipate if we did run with this option, that of the 12 houses, 6 of those houses would probably be torn down and rebuilt by their new owners. We just had to kind of pick some number because we believe that would happen. And the projected tax would increase up to almost $70,000 a year. So the positives and negatives, so reasonable pricing could attract younger families, which would be great to hopefully increase the enrollment at Johnson School. And empty nesters like the one-level living. On the downside, these are temporary military houses. They look like temporary military houses. Tax revenue would be less than the current rental income, and we'd have to remove and replace the underground storage tanks and put them above ground. Next 3 slides will deal with renting the houses and then converting to open space. This may be the last large tract of land available for potential open space, but the town shouldn't continue to be a landlord. The financials, rental income is actually twice the annual tax revenue if we sold the houses. The income would basically bring us about 2.9 million over 15 years, and that's at the current $13.50 rental rate. If we did move up to market rates, we could potentially get almost $4 million over 15 years. The downside to this is after 15 years, we wouldn't have any income. Again, the pros and cons. I lost my place in my notes here. Yeah, the pros and cons, again, this is the last opportunity for open space. There is a potential for CPA funds, which would give us matching state funds. As we heard earlier, it's a lot less than it used to be. And there is difficulty in obviously getting getting the CPA to approve it, as well as the state. And again, at the end, there would be no future tax income. The next one is sell houses or land, and the rest becomes open space. We calculated 7 houses or lots to pay off the loan, and that would also provide funding to tear down the houses and give us open space. The financials, sales potential of 2.5 million to 2.8 million with potential taxes of 33 to almost 40,000 a year. Again, we kind of said that if we sold 7 houses, 3 of them might be torn down and 4 of them would remain. Sell houses, the positive and the pros and cons, again, we get open space, but it's short-term dollars in open space. Again, potential for CPA funding, and there's less long-term revenue. The next option is tear down and sell 12 lots. This gives the town the ability to take a clean sheet of paper approach and remove the big mounds that are there, basically grade the property and make it more attractive overall. The financials, again, sales potential 3.6 to 4.2 million, so slightly less than if we sold them as is. However, the ongoing taxes would be, 81,600. Again, we get the upfront tear down costs. The pros and cons. So this will result in greater tax revenue down the line. It gives us a more attractive neighborhood. But again, it's a 3-year impact, construction impact on the neighborhood, and it may not address the housing needs where young families may not be able to afford a $300,000 to $350,000 lot or house and then, I'm sorry, a lot, and then have to build a house on top of it. We have, our last option is, and by the way, these options are in no particular order, it's just how they ended up on the pages. Tear down and sell 10 lots. This would give us more ability for larger lots and variant sizing, and there would be a reduction in density and a little bit more pleasing. The financials, sales potential 3 to 3.5 million, ongoing tax revenue of, $72,000. Again, we have that $160,000 upfront tear down cost. The pros and cons. This is the most aesthetically pleasing. It gives us little less money up front, but greater tax dollars down the road. And it's a predictable impact to the neighborhood, where when you tear them down, hopefully within 3 years, all the houses would be built and people will be settled in.
Can I just stop you right there?
Sure.
So if you tore those down and just made 10 lots, where would would be got a drive that you would make the open space portion of it?
Yeah, actually, that would be the cell 7, and yeah, we would try and link it with Bailey's Hill and the golf course, and yeah. Let's see. So the one thing that the committee has come up with is a list of things that we really wholeheartedly agree on. First of all is to limit the overdevelopment. Any future building should be limited to a maximum of 23% floor area ratio. I will show a slide at the end that will show you what the houses look like now and what they could be at 45% floor area ratio, which is our current zoning. We picked the number 23 because 23 is the average of the abutters of all of that property. As I said earlier, we also want to retain a 15-foot wide path to connect the Heritage Trail to Bailey's Hill. There's currently an easement there. What we envision is kind of a path with shrubs on both sides to give the landowners on either side of that path a little bit of privacy in their backyard. I said earlier there's a strip of land 5 to 10 feet that's actually part of the roadway. It's literally the asphalt is on this property. There's also another tract of land on the edge by the golf course. It's encroaching on the first tee. It's a 30.9 foot strip of land. The town should also retain the property that allows the dirt road access to the bunker. Additional restrictions we're still discussing, such as staggering sales or limiting purchase to one individual entity or group, and that's to try and prevent somebody from gobbling up multiple lots of land and trying to do a development. We just feel that it would have an adverse effect in the neighborhood. This next slide, so this is the areas, the 3 areas that the 4 areas that I was talking about earlier. The strip on the left side is the encroachment of Castle Road. So there is roughly 10 feet of asphalt that is on this property. In the middle is the recommended Heritage Trail. It doesn't exactly have to go there, but that's what the committee found would be the kind of the best place. The one on the far right is the encroachment on the golf course, and it doesn't really affect the first tee, but the path of the golf path the cart path that you take to the left of the tee actually goes through some of this property, and then the one on the bottom is the access road to the bunker. The final slide I'm going to show is the floor area ratio issue that I spoke of earlier. So the orange houses are the existing Coast Guard housings. The blue blocks are the size of homes that can be built at 45% floor area ratio. So the smallest house that could be built on these properties is 4,500 square feet, and the largest would be just over 6,000 square feet. I don't know of anyone that has approached us to say they're looking for big houses and overdevelopment. So that's why we would recommend this 23% floor area ratio. To give you an idea, Coast Guard houses are 1,272 square feet, and the 23% floor area ratio would have the smallest house at 2,300 square feet, and the largest would be 3,100 square feet. So that's our presentation. We are still working. I know this is a tough year for the budget. I said it a little earlier before the meeting started that this is probably the largest financial transaction that the town will be involved in, and we just really need time to make sure that we get it right. And unfortunately, I don't think we have any solid recommendation to the Board of Selectmen or to the town for this town meeting. But we do hope that, you know, at some point we would have maybe a special town meeting before next year. So that's where we stand.
Okay.
Any questions?
That's a recommendation, good. Do you have anything to say first?
Did you discuss the roadway between Willow Road and up to Bailey's on the side of the property?
I think early on we did,
Yeah.
but there really isn't a direct, Tom, you can help me on this one maybe. That roadway doesn't, I mean, there isn't any roadway, there isn't any potential roadway that could go between, what is it, Goddard and, I mean, you'd actually be encompassing the first tee. I know there's one to the left of the bunker.
There's a paper road the left of the first tee box.
Okay, yes.
Oh, yeah, and going up, you know, along your fence line.
I'll be honest, we didn't discuss any of that. Again, a lot of the information we got was from our real estate experts, and, you know, we've been studying the taxes and the numbers, and as you can see, there's a lot of different options of, yeah, we could go out and sell them as is, but then the long-term tax implications are less, or, you know, so there's all these different angles. So hopefully, we will have a solid recommendation in the near future.
Okay, so would you recommend presenting to the Board of Selectmen May, June, July, keeping us abreast of how it's going?
Absolutely.
Something like this.
I mean, I can send you, I can.
No, I mean something like this, when you get closer and closer, so
Yes.
the board can set up a special town meeting, because I think this needs a special town meeting, and I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And you want to be right. You want to,
And towards the end, we even had discussions that this town meeting with the prop override and other stuff, this might get lost in the mix, and we just kind of felt that we weren't, you know, we're not ready. We want to be ready, and we want to have a solid recommendation, so.
And number two question I had for you, have you notified the renters that are currently living there about this process?
We haven't. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I just, you know, as an idea,
We're
maybe.
all public meetings, so everyone should know about it.
Yeah, we do have public meetings, and
They're all posted.
they're all posted. I do know that we have most of our tenants are month to month. We have two that are on that have leases. One of the leases is up in January, and the other one is in May. So,
most important, Anne Marie Passanisi brought this up, there are public meetings, and they're posted. So anyone can come up and, you know, have their say. I'm sure Mr. Barber and the committee would allow people to speak.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, unfortunately, when most of the members came, we were working on this slideshow and trying to get all of our details and stuff, and it probably was pretty boring, and, you know, they didn't get much information, and I apologize for that.
Because you were a working committee.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been there, done it, I understand.
Right. So, thank you for your time.
So,
Are you gonna open up to the audience?
oh, well, wait, that's my next. If you want to, we can open it up now. If you don't, we're
Yeah,
done.
I mean, we have most of the committee members here, so if there are questions, if I
All right.
can't answer, I'm sure.
You're okay with this?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Anyone in the audience wish to ask questions? It's up to Peter.
I do. I have a question. Why the concern
Excuse me,
about a road
come to the
going-
mic, please.
Hi, I'm Anne Marie Passanisi.
Thank you.
285 Castle Road. Why the concern about the possibility of putting a road through from Willow Road? I don't know what that's about.
as you well know, we're very congested on Valley Road, Emerald Road, going down to the golf course and the ocean. You're getting the traffic, those people are getting 100% of the traffic out of those 4 roads. And we need to study that to see how we can give them some sort of relief.
My concern would be that the area already, well, first of all, there are already 12 houses there, and the property, the traffic is going by. That same area, they also have to try to switch it off. I don't know what the reason. I guess I don't figure out what the reason would be. What you'd have to take property that belongs to Bailey's Hill or.
Well, you'd have to
the
take
golf course or
part of Bailey's Hill, the basement,
Yeah.
the left of the tee box. That's a paper road going through there, but again, this all has to be studied. The number of cars going down. We made Ocean Street, as you know, one way because the people coming up from Ocean View and Kelly Greens, when they stopped at the top of Ocean Street, their front end was out in the Hot Road. And we had something like 14 accidents at the top of Ocean and the Hot Road. I think across from Mark Cullen's house, that mailbox was taken out about 12 times. I mean, they didn't stop. They just went right through, and of course, it was several accidents. That's why we made it one way. The people petitioned that on Ocean Street. So
I was wondering if you were envisioning a real road going through Bailey's Hill by the gazebo up Tri-Mountain Road. Is that what you were thinking about?
Well, no, it's just, it needs to all be studied. The whole thing, along with this area here, this whole thing has to be, repositioned.
Okay, thank you.
Your answer, Anne Marie, 3 years ago when I first started, there was going to be a warrant article to make Willow Road go right through that side of town, and Enzo and I said no, and we voted it down, just to be transparent.
All right, well, to that end, if you're thinking of reconfiguring that area, that's something certainly this committee needs to know, because we put a lot of time, effort, and sweat equity in building these, but never did we talk about having some other access road run through it.
Nor did we.
So if you're going to do a study, then we need to stop everything we do and let you do that and move forward, because if we put through a proposal that gets voted out, go through.
Well, it all started actually with the police chief. We have to vote in and then vote on the stop signs that are around town. Half of them have not been voted in. So it's like, the four-way at Valley and Ocean Street, okay, that was put in because of the many accidents at that corner. Coming out of Bass Point, there's a request to put a stop sign on the road coming around that property, or a yield sign, something to slow down those cars, but coming down around, and they're coming up from, they're just, there's a couple of close accidents there. These are some of the, we're gonna have to have a whole town-wide
Oh, well, if that's the
review.
case, then I put in my vote for a crosswalk in front of that playground in Little Nahant.
Yes.
Because you can't cross that street without getting hit.
Yeah, I've looked at that, and I agree with you. We need a right across the street from that playground. But the problem is when you come over Little Nahant Road, that playground sits right there, and if you put a crosswalk there, it'd be just like, God, it'd be taking people's life in the hand, because they come over that hill.
Yeah,
They
they're doing that even when you cross
They don't go 25 or
anyway.
30, they're going about 50.
Yeah.
And it would be, I don't know where to put that crosswalk, but you do need it. There's a crosswalk in front of the bank coming down there, way down the end there.
Yeah.
Just the beginning of the causeway.
Nothing in the middle.
And there's nothing in the middle, and the only place you could probably put it is coming out Little Nahant Road. I mean, just somewhere so the vehicles see, the crosswalk, and they see, they can see the people standing in the crosswalk coming across. But that's that's a very difficult area to put a crosswalk, especially over that hill.
I know.
It would be just,
But if you were doing a town survey anyway, that's my vote.
well, I think we need to do that and study that, because that's an area, because people cross there, and people skydiving, skiing, whatever they're doing down there, that, you know, they're coming across, and
Yeah, residents cross there too.
Yeah.
Can I,
So,
is it okay? Well,
Yeah,
is it-
it's-
wait. Is it okay if I drag this back to Coast Guard
yeah, that's,
housing?
actually, I was doing that now, thanks. I really was, I just digressed, I
No,
apologize.
I know.
But I am concerned that if this is, what we have worked on here and what we will continue to work on is under a set of beliefs that we were working under. And if the paradigm has changed, we need to know that.
well, I want to say you did a great job. That was well spelled out, and it's...
Good job.
Excellent, excellent.
Excellent.
I think you're right about having a special meeting just on that property. Yeah, I agree with you there.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Heather Goodwin from 22 Breezy Hill Terrace, and this is my neighborhood. And actually, I'm very relieved to hear that you don't have a plan that you're putting forth in April, because I would like to get more involved with the process. I was one of the people who showed up last week, and you know, seeing what you've put forth tonight, it's like a nice start. I love that you have open spaces included in these plans, because honestly, if you haven't come to Bass Point in a while, like, go down to that neighborhood, and like, you can see all the way to East Point. You can see the wharf. It's a beautiful view, and I'd love to have that shared with like the rest of the town. And I just want to add just one thing, like, so these people are my neighbors, and it's hard to like see these big plans made for these houses and think that some of these people are gonna like lose their homes. And in a way, I would love to see them part of the process, like if there's any way to keep them in mind as far as, I don't know if it's like legal to have them have first choice or whatnot, but there is like a human element to this whole thing. It shouldn't always just be about money and tax revenue. Like, these are people who have small businesses in town, teachers. I mean, they're my neighbors. So I just always want that to be thought of as well, that there is a human element to this giant chunk of land. And I will start showing up at some of these meetings. I'll look for them posted, because I'd love to get involved and see it. That's something that's good for the whole neighborhood and the whole town. Thank you.
So to your point on the, we did have somebody recently called about the same issue with the people that live there. So unfortunately, due to Chapter 30B procurement laws in Massachusetts, we wouldn't be able to offer anyone right of first refusal or anything like that. In fact, once this committee's done, it goes to, in speaking to our town legal counsel, Dan Script, what happens is we make our recommendation, it goes to the town land owned committee, which has to deem it as surplus, like they did with that truck tonight, and then it goes out to proposals to purchase the lots or the homes.
Enzo has a question, and then Lynn.
Before I forget, this is just Garter Drive. You need a stop sign up there. One of my constituents has been asking me for some time now, and I think I had asked a while ago, so have Timmy put a stop sign up there up at Garter Drive. Okay? And people are just blowing through there. There's little kids up there, so.
Yeah, after the meeting, let me know, show me where you want it, and I'll talk to Timmy
talk to the
about
young lady
installing it.
Requested it.
You might need a yield sign coming out of Bass Point Apartments, coming up, you know, coming around that curve at the end there.
Okay. Go ahead, Peter. Couple more.
Another question? Sure. Following up on what Heather raised, which is, you know, and you've actually throughout your presentation mentioned the idea of, you know, encouraging housing opportunities for people who would like to live in Nahant, to stay in Nahant, and would perhaps send children to school or participate in the Council on Aging activities. So my question has to do with, and I'm mentioned as part of the community preservation presentation, that we have a certain amount of money in the community housing account that is sitting there and continues to grow. My question goes back to this issue of what you raised earlier, that because we don't have an affordable housing plan, therefore townwide, therefore the possibility of some amount of affordable housing here is not on the table. Could you just clarify that?
Yeah,
Because I find it somewhat confusing.
So, and I think I would thank Carl Easton for the report that he put together. He did a huge amount of research on 40B. So the town, every town in Massachusetts should have a comprehensive 40B plan. We don't have one. Because we don't have one, any actions that we take to put ourselves in better light with the state as far as 40B doesn't count, because we don't have a plan. So we couldn't, if we made changes that affected 40B, we don't have a plan to update. There isn't a plan that exists. We don't have a plan to update, so there's no way to legally or properly notify the state of changes in 40B.
Right. So wouldn't it make sense to actually develop a 40B plan?
That would be another committee.
Right, and
I agree with
maybe I'm
that.
directing this to the Board of Selectmen, because again, it's like this open space master plan discussion. If we don't have these plans, we're vulnerable. Because I think what you were saying is very important and for the public to take in. A developer could come in and to buy the whole property and do a 40B by statute. And that's what we want to protect ourselves from. We really, really want to protect ourselves from that.
Tom, do you have a...
We decided to recommend a strategy.
His answer was they decided to have the planning board recommend a strategy. Develop a strategy.
That's who should be doing it.
Right.
Okay, okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. One more, Peter? Can you handle that?
$175,000.
Hey, this is the most, interest we've had in any of our meetings, so it's exciting.
I'm Orbilius. I live at 1 Goddard Drive, and this is in regards to Selectmen saying about the stop sign. It's not actually a stop sign. That big storm we had, we totally lost our street sign. So nobody knows that it's Goddard Drive, and people coming down the hill literally fly down the road, and then when they realize it's a dead end, they literally turn around in my yard. I've almost had my daughter hit several times and then fly off. So I don't know if where the dead end sign is turned. It doesn't look like it belongs to our street. There's no street sign. There's no way of defining that it's not a throughway. The slow children sign that was painted on the ground is completely gone, and it's just become a hazard, to be quite honest, with cars flying down. I almost won't let my daughter in the side yard. She's only allowed to play in the back because the cars, people who just either don't know Nahant or in Nahant, just driving around. And we have other small children that play on that dead end. So just, I understand with, planning and stuff might not be a top priority, but we are there now, and just it's become a safety hazard. So
This will be looked into by the
I'd appreciate it. Thank
town
you.
administrator is writing it down now. We'll look into it immediately.
Yes. It wasn't a stop, sorry.
It's okay. I just didn't mean to correct you.
Thank you.
Maybe,
one more.
approaching, as you're coming up Tri Mountain Road, a sign on the right side saying approaching left turn.
Yeah.
Do a dead end sign at the beginning of Goddard.
So that they know that they can't go flying down there,
Yeah, we should definitely take a look at that.
Okay.
Maybe have the police chief get your recommendations on it and tell him, ask him.
Yeah, Tony will take care of it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, just that the area coming up, I guess it's Gardner Road or, towards Castle Road, that turn. A woman almost got hit, woman and child almost got hit, it was 2 weeks ago when the ice was left on the road there. Somebody skidded and went all the way into the Coast Guard house front yard on the corner. Yeah, it was
Coming around that corner.
She only missed getting hit by about 30,
It will be looked at.
30 feet.
I promise you that.
They weren't doing 25, I imagine. Could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Have you thought about restricting this just for the Nahant residents only? I mean, just...
I don't know.
To get to that, that's like
Yeah, no, we
part 10.
We did ask Dan Scripps that, and we can't because of procurement laws. However, he said, you know, you can craft the proposal so that it is more attractive to Nahant residents, but there really isn't anything you can do to restrict it. You know, it's a difficult thing. I mean, you know, yeah, it's a great idea to approach the folks that are there and say, hey, you want to buy a house, you know, but unfortunately, you know.
That's also for the next committee, you know, I mean.
Yeah,
it's really not sort of our part of this.
Anne Marie said that's for the next committee.
The next one.
As far as 40B, we're never going to meet that criteria.
Oh, no, we're never going to meet the criteria, but again, we should
Maybe
have a
something to look
40B
at.
plan, and, you know, this committee recommends that the planning board
Oh,
get
yeah,
a
absolutely, they
40B plan together.
Right.
So,
Well, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for all your work,
Thank you
and
for your understanding, too, because, you know, I know you're in financial straits, and this is something that could probably help out, but it's, yeah, it's just.
I've been thinking for a couple of weeks that it would probably fit better at its own time, when you're ready.
That's the other thing. I think that, and I talked to the former selectman earlier, there's got to be a plan what we do with the money. There has to be a plan what we're going to do with the revenue after we sell them. How we're going to address if we sell them as individual units or tear downs. We're going to lose revenue, number one, you know, on the tax side. And what happens to all that money? I mean, we're not going to just go out and buy cars and, you know, so forth. I mean, a lot of that money, we have to have a concrete plan for that, so that can be presented to the town. We do with the $2 million that we made.
Well, that's why we have a town administrator.
Well, no, I mean, that has to be, no, that's not.
And that's what the.
I think it's
Sure
part
it
of the
is.
committee's
Sure it
charge,
is.
too.
You're talking about the profit.
The
after
committee's
we-
charge
after
is
we
to
buy-
tell us
pay
what
off the
to
loan.
do with the money?
Well, not to do with the, absolutely. I think there should be a recommendation how we handle that, and the administrator should be part of that also, and the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
You don't want nothing to do with it? I mean, we have to, I think.
Yeah.
Hi. One of the things that we've discussed a lot in the committee is, and I think that Peter mentioned it on a slide earlier, is to stagger the sales, whether the lots are, you know, it's land or as houses. And that's a way to protect us from the threat of 40B. Because the town, and this is, you know, just for the edification of people watching at home, because we don't have enough affordable housing in the town with units or with land, I think it's supposed to be 10%, a developer could come in and conceivably buy 3 or 4 lots and say, you know what, you guys don't have enough affordable housing in Nahant, so I'm going to put a high-rise here. And there's really not a lot we could do to stop it. So, you know, that's something that we're really concerned about as a committee. And so, you know, that would also potentially affect how the money rolls into the town, too. Because if you stagger, you know, and it's not necessarily our purview to say how you're going to do that, but if you stagger the sales of the lots, then the town is also protecting itself from a 40B risk, and also the money's coming in sort of gradually. So that's something to think about.
Yep. And again, I've been doing some processing on that. For instance, agreeing 100%, sell lots 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Yeah. I mean, obviously you're thinking about it.
Oh, yeah, no, that's been a lot of discussion. And the other thing, too, is, like Pan said, it spreads out that income coming in, and maybe you know, let's say it's we tear them down, a couple of the houses get built right away, we start getting tax revenue, and then we sell a couple of more, we get a big lump sum, and then a little bit more tax revenue, and, you know, because there is going to be a point when, you know, we sell the property while they're building the houses, that there's no house there, we're not going to get much in the way of tax revenue, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
You guys are doing tremendous work, and you guys spent a lot of time on it, and please don't take this question the wrong way, I'm not going to hold you to it, but do you have any estimated time frame as to when, I know you said you're in phase 3 to 5 right now.
Yeah.
Do you have, and not to hold it to you, but, you know, it's something that we have to consider, you know,
Right.
timeline. When do you think you guys will be potentially ready to recommend?
Looking at the other members of the committee.
How I feel about it, but.
Yeah, I know. And I will tell you, you know, while we've enjoyed, I think, doing this, we're at the point where, you know what, we want it to end too.
Yep.
So, I mean,
Oh, you've worked hard.
what do you say, another 3 to 5, 6 months?
My thought is that, you know, the summertime's sort of a wash, let's face it. So I'd love to be able to really put our guns to it and try to get this done for June, the end of June. That's how I feel about it, just so that it's, that's my thought. Now, will we be successful? We won't know till we get
Well,
back to it.
But that's a tentative plan to tell the board.
Right.
Yeah.
And
The-
then you can change it.
Yeah.
The other,
Chairman.
one of the committee members only recently had an idea that another safeguard, a possible safeguard, you know, this is one lot of land, okay? So it has to be divided. When it's divided, and I don't remember who it was that had the idea, that it may be that in the deed restrictions, you know, the deeds that are registered, that they cannot be combined. And I don't know if that's something we can do even, but somebody had the idea, and it sounded pretty, you know, if that would solve the issue of being concerned that somebody's going to buy, you know, even 2 of them and just build a giant mega mansion that's going to block everybody else's view. I don't know, you know?
Right.
So,
But you're working on it, that's
yeah,
good.
so one of the things that we have been looking at, and that would be fine for deed restrictions. So one of the things we learned recently from Dan's script is that deed restrictions usually run out after 30 years. Not that it may matter at that point as far as combining, but one of the things we think we don't want to happen is 30 years from now, somebody might have one of these houses and say, I'm building myself a huge house now, 6,000 square feet. And then it sticks out, and then the neighborhood eventually turns into those blue boxes. So that we're probably looking, the best, I think the best means that we've come up with is probably a zoning overlay. And I know that sounds, you know, that's kind of from the last town meeting that didn't go well. But essentially, it would just be this property, and essentially that people couldn't tear down those houses and make, you know, larger homes, so.
The other thing
Another,
is,
may I?
yeah, sure.
Another thing I had a thought, because I've been processing since you've been here.
Yep.
Make them all 9,990 square feet, and then they're under the purview of the building inspector. I know you've thought of it, but that was a thought that
When
I
did we
had.
eliminate that option? We actually had that as an
I
option.
did that on my own. It was like,
One of the original 16 options.
Yeah.
Actually, because we were hoping that we could get
I'm not
13
conforming.
lots out of it.
Right.
And the 13th lot would pay for but it wasn't possible.
so obviously you're doing a lot of,
We did look at
you've
that.
obviously beat on all of
That
this.
opens up another can of worms for other properties.
Right.
But I'm just a thought.
Yeah, no, the problem is then you gotta make sure that we go in front of the zone, and all of this stuff can happen, it's just how much it takes to get it done. Then we need to go in front of the zoning board to make those buildable lots. And then, you know, and once they're deemed buildable lots, it wouldn't be difficult to sell. I know one of our real estate experts, Lisa Scortis, had said that whether it's 9,999 square feet or 10,000 square feet, as long as it's a buildable lot, the price is basically going to be the same. It's obviously if you were at 4,000 square feet versus 10,000, then you'd have more of an issue.
Will you be ready for May? I'm thinking about a special town meeting.
Yeah, May or June. I mean, that's what we're going to shoot for. I mean, I would say right now, let's look at June. Like Anne Marie said, we want to try and get done before the summer months, but
You can't have I don't think, you have to check with Peggy, because you can't have a special town meeting
60
in
days.
60 days after the annual town meeting.
Why can't we incorporate that?
But 60 days-
proposal in the
That's
special
May,
town
that's the
meeting?
end of June.
The special town meeting that we're having.
It has to be at the end of June. I mean, you can't have a special town meeting,
it's got to be 60 days
it's gotta be
after.
60 days after the annual town meeting. And I would check with the town clerk on that first, but I'm
60
pretty
days
sure-
after the
But that would
April
make-
30th, which would be May, June anyway.
The only thing you could do is postpone the annual town meeting. You know, have it and then just
Okay.
which complicates things.
All right, that's something to talk about later. One more?
So I get nervous when you guys are starting to like rush. Like this does not seem May to me. So you just talked about like comprehensive traffic plans and stop signs and affordable housing and starting another committee, like, and now it skips to, can we get this done in May? And that's when I get nervous as someone who lives in the neighborhood that this will turn into like, again, rushing just to make the money for the town because we're in financial crisis instead of doing it the right way. I mean, with all due respect, you guys are working really hard, but like, I couldn't even read half those because they went so fast. You're going like so fast. And so like, I want to be able to like feel confident because when I look out my kitchen window or my bedroom window or my office window, that's what I see. I see these houses and I don't want to see huge houses, McMansions. I want it to be beautiful. I want it to have open space. I want it to be safe for the Johnson school kids who walk from Bass Point, because at this point it isn't. Like those sidewalks are a mess. That intersection at Gardner and Tri-Mountain, a mess. Like, I can't even believe there's not an accident there every single day. Like, that's something that should be considered in this plan, because I, for one, like, you know, I'd like to think that all the people who come in to do work in this area is going to be from Nahant, they're going to respect our roads, but that might not be the case. They might be driving fast. It could be at 6 in the morning when my daughters are walking down to the bus stop. Like, there's a lot to consider, and I just get nervous when I hear, like, can we get it done in May? Because that's like 2 months from now. It doesn't feel like we're there yet. Thank you.
So one point is, because we did go through the slides fast, we will be putting them on the town website in PDF form. So at least you'll be able to go through them.
And back to my original statement, whatever time you need, the Board of Selectmen should give you that in a reasonable amount. As long as you give updates to the board. I mean, come on, you guys are working hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I just would say that to that comment, and I think that's a great comment that you're putting out there, and I think that there's been a lot of time put into this already, and when we ask the committee, when do you think you'll be prepared to present something to the board and the town to make a decision on, you won't see any type of construction for quite some time after that point. There's still a ton of time after that. Town-owned land study committee, zoning board. You got to give opportunity for the people that live in that home to find another location if that were to be the decision to go with. So, you know, it wouldn't be like May, all of a sudden you would see construction. So there'd still be a long period of time. And yeah.
We're not gonna rush to May, but the stop signs and the yield signs.
We'll rush that.
That's the most dangerous intersection. And it happened that I was coming up there and I had to go up to a Bass Point apartment to see someone. And they had a complaint about that area. And that area is, I came up, I came around the turn, and I'll tell you, there was someone, they weren't going 25, they had to be going 50, and they come around that curve. I mean, if there's some kids crossing one, they're gonna hit them. I mean, and in this incident, someone just told me that they came around the curve, and there's all ice, and they ended up in the housing, the Coast Guard housing. We could eliminate one house then, you know, but I mean, that's too dangerous. And we've got to get with the police chief and say, listen, come up with a workable plan and put those signs up immediately. And whatever he recommends for stop, slow, yield, that has to be done, because that's like the third time I'm driving up there, and I'll be honest with you, it is a dangerous intersection. It's the same intersection when we put a four-way stop sign on Valley Road and Ocean Street. People coming down, I mean, no one stops. Of course, half the town, they don't stop. And the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit is like, you know, I see it in front of my house. People don't stop at Amber Road. They come through there and...
Sounds like a good reason not to extend Willow Road through, because
Yeah.
it would get more traffic.
All right, please, please. Enzo has been waiting to say something, if it's okay, and then Peter wants to say something so we can wrap it up.
I just want to, you know, and I don't want to panic everybody, but from the financial end of it, and I can understand where you guys are coming from, I really do, but in 5 years, that bond is coming due. We pay one, we don't pay any interest, I mean, any principal on the loan. It's gonna come due, and we're gonna owe them $2 million. The trouble is, you're talking about displacing 12 families. It's gonna take time. You're talking about if the plan goes through that we tear them down. First of all, the fuel tanks have to come out. That's a time bomb. I owned a gas station, and I know what the implications are if you have a release. You don't want that, okay? So they have to come out sooner than later. And I've been saying this for the past 4 years since I've been on this board. Because you don't want to deed them as hazardous, as a you know, hazardous waste site. So moving forward, this is going to take another 3 or 4 years. Now that bond comes due, what do? You know, and we're still back at square one. We don't have a plan. We don't know where the money's going, but yet Mr. Taylor has to write us a check for $2 million. Right? No, I'm just kidding.
It's 1.86 million.
1.86 million.
I can handle that.
So the sooner we get this done, the better off we are. And absolutely, everybody should come to these meetings because they are working hard and they have come up with some good ideas. And let's just get it done. Get this thing rolling. I mean, and whether it's open space or a high-rise or condos or 12 houses, I don't really care. It's up to the townspeople to do this. It's up to the taxpayers to vote on this.
All right, thank you.
So,
Peter.
actually, to Enzo's point with the fuel tanks, he's correct. The fuel tanks have to come out. Any one of these options, those tanks have to come out. We can't sell those houses with the tanks in the ground. I have reached out to Dan Script. Dan Script has actually reached out to the Army Corps of Engineers. I know there's still an issue with the cleanup on Bailey's Hill, so he's reaching out to the same person to see if they can take these oil tanks out for us.
They put them in. They should be responsible.
That's the way I look at it, is cradle to grave, but he wasn't really, Dan's not really an expert on that cradle to grave, so, but he did have communication. There's some stipulation if town got any gain out of the property, then they wouldn't take it out, but I don't know. So he is working on it.
They should have gave us back the whole property free.
True.
You know, they took it by eminent domain, you know what I mean? We had to pay for the Coast Guard station too.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you, committee. Thanks for everyone for your input. Next on the agenda, under closing announcements. Before we...
Can I do my opening comments now?
Oh, all right. On our comments, what we're going to do is, Mr. Lombard's going to explain Charles Kelly's scholarship, but before that, Enzo wants to speak.
Some time ago, when I first became a selectman, I promised to get the flood maps changed in Nahant. And we started a committee, and we did. We got them changed. Part of that was the community rating system. I've taken time off, days off, and to come up to the town hall and meet with the ISO, that's the insurance guy from FEMA, with FEMA themselves, and several other governmental people from FEMA. The last meeting I had was with Eugene Coles, and he's actually the ISO. He's in charge of the community rating system. And I asked him, I said, you know, how are we doing here? He said, he just looked at me and said, Enzo, if I didn't think you had enough points, I wouldn't be here. So the community rating system works if you have flood insurance and your insurance is $10,000 a year. If you get a 5% discount, that's what they do. They give you discounts, you know, because you've you have a letter of good standing. So that 5% means a lot to some people that are on the ocean. I think we have enough points for a 10% discount. This is what he was leading to. However, we don't have a letter of good standing. I worked tirelessly to get that done. I mitigated, I did a ton of work on this, and I am telling you, I am not happy. There's a house on Bass Point Road that has abused the system. And I absolutely want this board to back me up on this, and I want that person, I want a court order on him, and I want him to go to court. And I want this straightened out. That's the only way FEMA is going to give us a letter of good standing. I am not going to waste any more time on something that, if the town's not going to back me up on this and do what they're supposed to do and follow the regulations the way they're supposed to, I'm not going to do it anymore. And I wholeheartedly mean that. I want you guys to back me up on it, and I want it done. I want a court order on this person, and I want that absolutely, I want it done. Do I have your
Town administrator?
Yeah, and Selectman Brill and I have had lengthy conversation about this. He's absolutely correct. The homeowner and FEMA have had quite a few incidents over the years, and we've actually issued, the building inspector did not approve his building application. He's actually issued a couple stop orders. And FEMA, you know, I agree with Selectman Brill. I also, you know, FEMA, it's kind of unfair, the position that FEMA's putting us in my opinion. You know, because they are the ones who are issuing, you know, insurance payments to him without checking the work that he's using the money for. And now it's on us to enforce, you know, the 50% rule of that, of the work and bringing his house up to code. So it puts us in a difficult position, but I completely agree with Selectman Burrell that, you know, that one house and that one situation should not hold up the rest of the community in these potential savings.
There's so many people that could benefit from, this person is actually, everybody that pays flood insurance is losing money because of this one person. And I can tell you, there was a couple of other ones, and I gotta tell you, it's not rocket science. If your house is worth $100,000, the building, not the land. I mean, you might have $1 million lot and a house that's worth 100 grand. Well, if your house gets wiped out, or if you want to do substantial improvements to it, now you're going to comply with FEMA's regulations. And it's actually state building code. So if you're in an A zone or a VE zone, now you're going to comply with that. We got people down at Fox Hill Road that are actually applying for FEMA grants to raise their houses because they don't want to get flooded anymore. Why anybody would want to get flooded is beyond me, or have their house knocked over is beyond me. I would absolutely do it. I mean, if it cost me another 50 grand, I would do it. I mean, to raise my house, or do what I have to do to do that. All I can say is that he's tying up everybody else, and people need to know that. And I am telling you, I want a court order on him, and then so I can get that letter, the letter of good standing for the town of Nahant, so I can move forward with this and be done with it.
Do we know, is it just simply the court order will be enough to,
Yes.
for,
He said,
to
get a court order. They want us to do something about it, because FEMA can't. When I was in Florida a couple of years ago, there was a guy from FEMA there because they had the hurricane, and he was supposed to be there. He was deployed. They call it deployment. He was there deployed for supposed to be 2 weeks. He was at the hotel that we were at. He was there for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, because they don't have a lot of help. They can't track all this stuff. They leave it up to the cities and towns to do that, and to do it the right way, because they are underwater, literally, FEMA. Financially, they're underwater, and we have to help them. When they write a check for the maximum amount, for $250,000, that means that house is totaled. total, it's gone. It needs to come down, and then it has to comply with their regulations, and that's not what happened. And this is inherent, and it's repetitive down there. So it needs to be straightened out.
Okay, so I'll accept the motion to have the town administrator issue,
Town council.
and through town council, issue a court order to this resident.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Okay. Charles Kelly Scholarship. Mr. Lombard,
Yes,
you
this
don't
is,
have to read it all, just explain it,
yeah, well,
whatever you want. It's long.
the board moved last year to increase the scholarship for the Charles Kelly Memorial Scholarship to $1,000 annually. What you need to do is to type the seniors or their parents, type up a short essay on what community service means to you, and don't put your name on the essay. Submit the following with your application: copy of your letter of acceptance to any college, and if you don't have received yet, you can always forward it later. The short essay would be typed on a separate sheet. Eligible for the scholarship, Nahant residents who have been accepted to a 2 or 4 year accredited college, please submit application to the Selectman's office, the Town Hall, by April 26th. Is it April 26th? 20, well, the town meeting is when?
Oh, yeah, that's true. You'd want it by the 20. Well, actually, you'd want it before.
The 25th?
Please submit to the town by April 1st.
Well,
That's pretty soon.
That's pretty soon, though, huh?
That's what I'm saying. I would submit,
Maybe April 15th?
I would suggest April 20th.
Okay, April 20th.
That's a Friday. Into the Board of Selectmen of the Town Administrator by April 20th. The winner of the scholarship will be notified at the annual town meeting on April 27th for the presentation. So it's $1,000 to the seniors graduating this year, going into a 2 or 4 year college. And there's other scholarships on that website.
Yep.
And there's quite a few. And I hope everyone, especially the parents, are looking at these websites, because there's quite a bit of money sitting there. And the seniors going forward, $1,000 will actually going to a 4 year college will pay for your books. You know, so it's an ongoing program, so it's pretty good. And as I say, we changed it from 500 to 1,000. I wish we could make it 10,000, but yeah, well, I mean, maybe down the road.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn to executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 3, to discuss strategy with respect to threatened litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares. I so declare.
So moved. I'll second it.
Roll call vote. Mr. Lombard?
Aye.
Burrell?
Aye.
Taylor, yes. We are adjourned. I didn't bang it hard, though.